right. Welcome to Still Rolling BJJ podcast. My name is Matthew Montgomery, and during my post production, we realized that my camera went blurry about I don't know, probably halfway through the episode, and it remained that way. So we had a little bit of technical difficulty. The audio is fine. I'm still going to upload the video version. You're just going to get a blurry me. I'm sure you're not tuning in for my good looks, so the episode is still fantastic. Michael Ocampo is a fantastic listen. We talk about a lot of things related to his jujitsu journey, but also life in the art and in the military, and also raising kids, and his life in general. He is a widower, and he's remarried to a fantastic woman today. So we go a little bit through some of that. Please enjoy.
If you start to understand that literally everything that you do is decision-making practice, then and that it's not like this one or two things is the only thing I'm deciding. I'm deciding several things down the road. Yeah, it slows down the process, but that's, kind of why jiu-jitsu looks slow on the outside, because there's lots of decisions going on and it just happens that way.
Hello and welcome back to the Still Rolling BJJ podcast. I'm Matthew Montgomery. Today I am joined by Michael Ocampo. He's an Air Force veteran, retired, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and the head instructor of the Renzo Gracie, The Grove in Houston. Michael and I actually, we go way back. We were actually, relatively young jiu-jitsu white and blue belts together around 2012 in Charleston MMA in South Carolina. Since then, his journey has taken him from the military to the mats through personal challenges and into leadership as a coach, mentor, and academy owner. He's a father and a husband to Claudia, and what I really respect about his story is how he's faced life head on, raising his son as a single dad for years after losing his first wife, then later finding love again and continuing to build a life that was rooted in purpose and resilience. So, Michael, I appreciate you sharing that with me. And I just want to say, for anyone listening, I think it's really powerful that you're able to speak openly about that part of your life. It takes strength to do that. And I want to take a moment to acknowledge Claudia, your wife now. I know it can be hard to revisit loss publicly, but I think it says a lot about the kind of partnership that and understanding that you both have. So welcome, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, you said a lot of nice things about me. That's really touching. Man.
Dude, I remember back in those Charleston MMA days, we had this like squad, and I was kind of a new guy in it, but with you and Josh Monona and Dan Severn, and you guys going up to Atlanta and crushing it at New Breed. Those were fun times. That was one of the times that really made me fall in love with jiu-jitsu. What I'll get into with you is I'd like to know, how did you get into it? I know that you've got a judo background, a traditional jiu-jitsu background as well.
Yeah. So that story goes way back, because there's a lot of people that start martial arts, like they come into, my academy and they're doing jiu-jitsu or something athletic for the first time ever in their 30s or 40s. But I actually started martial arts when I was a kid. I was 5 years old. Started in, it's funny. A lot of people think I thought I started in judo, and I had a choice, actually. I remember because I watched, it was The Last Dragon. The Last Dragon. And Ernie Reyes Jr. had a scene with his dad, and it was like a choreographed scene. And I was like, oh my God, I want to do that. And so I asked my dad, I want to do that. And he goes, okay, that's Taekwondo. He goes, you sure you want to do that? And I go, yeah. And he goes, I did something similar to that. I think he did either Tang Sudo or Hapkido. I didn't know this, but when the conversation came up, he told me about his martial arts history. And so I was like, and he goes, you don't want to do anything like maybe judo, go to the Olympics? And I was like, what's judo? And he goes, judo is where you like do the throws and do the whatever. And I don't remember seeing it in a movie. So I was like, no, I want to do what that kid's doing. And so he was like, okay. So I had a choice in the beginning to be a grappler or a striker, and I chose striking. And so, but I credit that time in martial arts when I did Taekwondo to expose me to this world that I didn't know I was going to do like here and now. Like there was a giant part of my life where I wasn't doing any martial arts and I didn't know it was going to be coming back, you know, so much. But like when I look back over the length of my life, like those times where I wasn't doing martial arts where I thought I would never do it again were actually pretty small. And so I was just a lifelong martial artist. So it started with Taekwondo. I did that up until about high school where I was really struggling with grades and juggling just being a teenager and friends and just everything with that. And so my parents were like, "Hey, you gotta square up like somewhere." And so I was like, "Okay, I don't have time for this." Is one of those times where like, I'm not doing martial arts anymore. So I don't have time for Taekwondo. And we were just with my friends, we were like garage training anyways. We were like, we were doing stuff like, one of my friends was in Aikido, one of my friends was in Kung Fu, and we were just, we horse around in the backyard anyways doing this stuff. And so it's not like I ever didn't do anything with my body. I was dancing a lot. I did did break dancing. And then when I was in the Air Force, I ended up gaining a lot of weight, like just partying. And, like I said, it was a time in my life where I didn't think martial arts was going to be a part of it. And I was like, I need to get fit again. And I knew about myself that it was like, I can't do anything like the traditional stuff because it's just boring to me, bored to tears. If you talk about that on your podcast, I got nothing for you. I don't do any of it. Like, I
Yeah.
can't run because it's just, you're in your head the whole time running. I'm like, no, I want to be out of there. So I'm like, so I was like, I need a way to get fit. I almost lost my career in the Air Force because I was in the PT program. I was failing it out for
Wow.
health. Like people look at me now and they're like, oh, they only know me like this. But I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I was 5'4", and the most I weighed stepping on the scale was 188, which is 12 pounds away from 200. 5'4", almost 200, but that was just the highest number I saw. I never
Yeah.
stepped on there the biggest I ever was. So
Yeah.
anyway,
I don't think I knew you when you were big, because when
yeah,
you say that you were like on remedial and PT program, I know Ocampo was like six pack and
yeah.
athletic as hell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's through martial arts, actually. I mean, well, yeah. So, yeah, I needed to get under control, and the reason that I went into the military, anyways, because I knew I needed like a parental figure, I guess.
Uh-huh.
Because I
Yeah.
was like, I'm gonna throw my parents' money away if I go to college. I know it. I knew it about myself because I only did good in school, and I did great in school was so I could just go hang out with my friends and play basketball or do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so, anyways, um, like that was the deal. I gave up something to do well in school because I wasn't doing well, and I thought martial arts was gone. But I needed it to get in shape because I was like, okay, let me get my life together. And so I was looking at, actually, I was looking at capoeira because I was a break dancer, and so I was like, oh, dancing related. And I think YouTube was already around, but because I was looking at videos on the internet and like looking for schools, searching for places online. I was in San Antonio at the time, 2006, I think. And yeah, 2006. And I was like, I couldn't find anything. I was like, okay, well, actually, there was like one or two places. There was one or two places. But I was like, how would I know if it's a good, how would I know what's what? And in the results of, Brazilian fighting capoeira was Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And I was like, oh my God, I was on the back burner. I was a UFC fan this whole time. Just, because it's the things you do, so you don't think
Yeah.
about it. It's like saying I read books. Like you don't, it's not part of your decision making process when you're looking for exercise. And so at least it wasn't mine. And so the search results for capoeira led to jujitsu. And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, I used to like to do this stuff, like fight.
Yeah.
And so then I went I went looking for jujitsu. And there was one or two places and only one was near me. It was a Helsing school run by Josh Lauber. He was a purple belt at the time. Just moved down from Helsing's. He was teaching the kids class at Helsing School. And so it was a Helsing Academy in San Antonio, his first location, Josh's first location when he moved back. Um, and I credit him to just really introducing me to jiu-jitsu. He's exactly my size. I think he's like exactly my size now. But I was
Yeah.
like fluffier than him then. Like he told me what gi to get, like what to do, this and that. Yeah. That's how I got into jiu-jitsu. It was for my health. I loved martial arts already and I didn't realize it. Um, and then the grappling training that came from that, and actually my lineage in general was because I was already in the military when that happened, and I moved to like three permanent duty stations, and then like 2 or 3 temporary locations before I even settled in Charleston and retired out of Charleston. And so there were some places after I left, like I went to Korea after San Antonio, and I there was no jujitsu. I was on base, and so it was back to garage training. And there was a bunch of amateur fighters that were just found their way to the racquetball courts and the fitness areas there, and we would just. It was like it was almost like scheduled class because we all got off work at the same time and all showed up at the same time and all worked out at the same time and all cross trained. I still keep in touch with some of those guys through social media. So there was guys that I was like learning striking with and from that were on the Air Force boxing team. This one of the guys was the Air Force boxing coach or just left duty as one of the coaches on the Air Force team. Um, there was I remember an orange belt in judo, a few blue belts, a purple belt, and then a nogi guy, which
Okay.
like he would be like he'd be like, I guess I'd be a blue belt. And when he rolled, I was like, yeah, you'd probably be a blue belt. I didn't know what was what, but I was a
Yeah.
white belt. I think I had 1 or 2 stripes when I had left. Maybe not even that. I don't even remember when I left the Helson Academy. So there was a lot of that training until I got to Charleston. And even when I was in Charleston, there was the location that I met you was like its third or fourth location at that point. And um, when I had arrived there, I went to a few places, and there was a Helson there too in Charleston.
Is that Black
It
Force?
No, it was Gary Brewer had his own Helson Academy.
Okay.
And so I went and I liked it. I enjoyed it. And this is where I met maybe the first of everybody out there. I met Lucas Pinto there when he was like 14 or 15. Well, he's looked young. He seemed young. And so then he was actually my first role when I went to CMMA. But in between that time, I went back to Helson like the next week or few months or so, and then the school was like in a different spot, and I was like, I couldn't make it to that spot now, and I was like, dang. So it was just inaccessible with my schedule. But the Naval Weapons Station had judo and jujitsu, but it was traditional jujitsu, and so I just trained there for a few years, and just I was just there until let's see, this was around. My goodness, I don't remember. I'll have to look at. I know dates by scrolling through, but maybe around 2010, 2011, Charleston had a BJJ tournament that it hadn't had in a while because there was no jujitsu around. There was a few schools, but no IBJJF, no Naga wasn't going through there. New Breed wasn't really going through. There was nothing going through there. So it was the Charleston BJJ Open, and it was run by Ika Medina. And I went to that tournament because I wanted to compete, and I was doing judo. I was like, okay, the same moves, different rule set. Let's figure this out. I was doing
Yeah.
jujitsu already. I remembered that stuff. I was still using that in when I was in judo. I was terrible in judo because I would abuse newaza. And when I ended up at CMMA, I was known for judo, but I was actually like abusing that going into jujitsu.
Yeah.
So I felt like the jack of all trades, and I was using the other one against the other one when I was training at different places. So and yeah, so that's where we ended up meeting, and that's how I got there. Roundabouts. There might be some details I'm missing, but that's about how I got.
That's awesome. You starting in 2006, you mentioned that the guy teaching was a purple belt. It's funny now because people that have gotten into it probably in the last 5-10 years, there's black belts available. And
Yeah.
and back in those days, man, it was like if there was a black belt around, I think Casey Callias might have been one of the first. He's probably like the second black belt I had ever seen. So,
Wow, yeah.
it was when I lived in Columbus. There was a Helson school up here that actually is where I train now. But I didn't train there at the time.
Nice.
I did some traditional jujitsu before I came down to Charleston. So like I had not seen black belts. And then when I went to Idaho, we were learning from a brown belt. So those early days were a lot different. So you were in the Air Force and training. How did what was your job in the Air Force?
Those things all kind of it was a perfect storm in that time frame and in that city to put me where I was here. I had I had just started to see that I was in a judo tournament, and in my weight division, the guy was like 6'2", and he choked me to sleep. First time I've ever put to sleep. Choked me to sleep. And I have a separate story about that. So
Yeah.
I distinctly remember what it's like to go sleep and wake up in a tournament because that was the first time it happened. Anyways, all right, I haven't done it. It hadn't happened since I tapped earlier, but I was like, this guy's way too big, and so that's like when I stepped on the scale and I was like, man, I was like, I'm 12 pounds away from 200. And I was already training martial arts again. So, you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I thought I was already getting in shape, and I was like, okay, I need to get in more shape. And so I I ended up like dieting down and getting into really good shape with a fitness program that I found online. And I, I if I would have known now what I know about the internet and the way that money is made, like I attributed this guy to my success through his
Yeah.
free videos, which was awesome. And then I sent him my before and afters, and he's like, "This is great. Can I use them?" I'm like, "Yeah." And my ads were everywhere, and I was like, "Oh shoot, that's me!" And everyone's like, "Hey, it's you!" And I was like, "Yeah, helping this guy
Yeah.
sell all these courses." And I think, damn. But I thanked him. But I was like, you know what? Use it, like
Yeah.
sell the course because it did help me. It changed my life. And
Yeah.
so, anyways, right around that time that happened, I got off of like the the PT program, and so I wasn't known as somebody that was failing it, but they did see my weight loss journey, the unit fitness program manager, and at that time when they leave, a new volunteer shows up, but they get a say in it. People get a say in it. It's like, hey, do you got anybody that wants to be unit fitness program manager? And so my flight was like, yeah, hey, Ocampo was like, look at his numbers, he skyrocketed. What happened?
Right.
Look
He
at what
figured
happened
out
here.
how to fix it.
Yeah, he figured it out.
Yeah.
And so they put me on, and I did that. And that allowed me, I helped I don't remember what my EPR bullet statement says, but it was, we rose all the fitness rates. And so they were allowing me to now just make my own schedule so long as I kept the squadron looking good like that.
Nice.
So I got to train at lunch. I got to, leave work early as long as I went in early. Like, because I went in super early because there were people that their fitness time was end of their shift and they ended at 3 a.m. And some people were getting to work at 5 a.m. So I was like, okay, I have to hold a 4 a.m.
Yeah. You
PT
got
session.
that window.
Yeah. And so I was like, can I have a lunch whenever I want and then leave early and then I'll go train? So I got a lot of training time in.
Nice.
And so that all happened because of, my weight loss, because of judo, because of the military needing a leader. And so I was like, oh, this is perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
then,
I remember, I mean, so you say you hadn't figured out YouTube, but I remember you would come in with like the YouTube move of the day. I mean,
oh man, there was all
before
kinds
class,
of.
do you
I was
remember
like
that?
doing Instagram stuff.
Yeah.
I I I have a YouTube video. My YouTube is dead right now, but I have a YouTube video that has like, at the time I thought was pretty cool. It has over 100,000 views because it was a Street Fighter joystick tutorial, and it got picked up by the only there was only like one or two fighting game community Street Fighter websites, and they linked my video. And so it just like, and then like YouTube started sending me, because it was growing that program at the time, and I didn't understand any of it. And I was like, whoa, this sounds like a lot of terms and conditions. I was like, I didn't do anything with it.
Yeah.
And so then like, I was like, wait, I was like, I had, over 100,000 views on this video that I literally put it out so that if anybody asks me, I could just like, hey, here's the video so I don't have to explain it to you. But it got picked up. And so I was like, huh.
Man, it's crazy because like I mean, I'm gonna guess anybody watching this or even listening to just the audio, you can hear how energetic Ocampo is. He's always been this way. He has maybe the best jujitsu style I've seen as
Oh, I
far
don't know
as
about that.
I'm talking about geese. I mean, you were Mr. Show Your Roll. You had all you inspired a lot of, like, I'm kind of a gi head too now. I've got a whole closet full, and I always think about like, man, Ocampo, he had it on lock, right?
Man, shout out to Marco, Bear, Show Your Roll.
Yeah.
I'm a brand ambassador for them now, and it feels like a full circle moment because you know I was already into like fashion and sneakers before, outside of jujitsu, and so when show your roll came onto the scene, I was like, this feels like what they're doing over here, and I like want to vibe
Yeah.
out with that. And I didn't know, because I was a white belt when show your roll came out. I didn't know that it was like a thing like that too, because ranking meant a lot too. And so when I was a white belt wearing a show your roll, people were
Right.
like, why are
Yeah.
you
Like,
investing this much money in your gi, bro? Like,
yeah.
you're a white belt. Like,
They're like, call me when you quit. I'll buy your gi
yeah,
from you.
yeah. And I'm like, man, I don't know. Maybe I took extra beatings because of that gi, but
Yeah.
now I'm repping. So what's up?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, that's awesome. Like, I mean, and if you, I've got a couple of listeners that don't train. Show your roll is like I'd almost, kind of like Air Jordans
Yeah.
of jujitsu gis. They're high demand. I never even got a show you roll until probably in the last year, just because A4, trying to get my hands on one, and it was so hard back, especially in those days, because A4s just wouldn't get stocked, and show your rolls are very limited release usually. So if somebody had more than one, it was like, wow, what are they doing to get
Yeah.
that? So that was very cool. But on the actual mats though, you were coming in with YouTube videos and trying new things that, at least I had never seen. A lot of us had never seen back in those days.
Yeah, it was kind of a necessity, and it's, well, not a necessity, but like the jiu-jitsu is cool because the rules set, or at least the style of grappling it is, allows for innovation and bringing things in. And so I've never seen something so creative in martial arts. Like, people ask, why don't you have like a set curriculum that you could grade to for belt ranking? And I'm like, that is it's the antithesis of like how it got here, like how we got to this, what jiu-jitsu looks like now. Like, to put a cap on, like, there are some people that will see 1 through 10 technique and say, this is my requirement. And then it was like, I'll never learn more than 10
Yeah.
of whatever. And it's like, well, then we'll only see 10 ever. There's no forms, there's no katas. Anything new is like, hey, that's a new thing. But what if everything was the new thing, and that's what's accepted, was the new thing? And so it doesn't always have to eat. Like, the thing is too, with fads and techniques that come and go, it truly is like, hey, all these things that you think that you're figuring out, they're now, with the advent of the internet, you're seeing that this stuff was happening in Japan, silent black and white footage, whatever, how long ago? A century feels like. Might be,
It,
right? I don't know.
yeah. Well, no, it's a new take on an old thing every time, and and you hit the nail on the head that jujitsu is endless in a way that we could take a simple technique. The way that you're going to apply it is going to be different than how I apply it. And that has to do with experience, but it also has to do with the fact that, you are in your body size and I'm in mine. We're at kind of two opposite ends of the physical spectrum as far as size and weight. And so I'm never going to invert. I'm not trying to Imanari roll. I'm not doing any of this, stuff, especially as I get older too. But, most of it still just boils down to arm bars and chokes.
And
Just
like
different ways of getting there.
your particular path to get there. And like, if your path doesn't include rolling over like a bear, inverting, then that's
Mm-hmm.
not your path. Like, why would I send you down that way?
Right.
There's so many other ways that you
Or
could
test
accomplish it.
somebody on that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because your way doesn't include that, but it's still endless that way. Your way still has endless ways. So it's like, oh, let's go that way. And so I try to provide a lot of that for everyone. And, techniques aren't going to work for everybody. And if there's a modification or a way, like, hey, listen, you probably don't need to go over your neck, but there's a thing that you can do where you can just kind of roll over your shoulders and turn it into this instead. So much easier. They're like, oh, they appreciate that. Like, okay, this is a different, moving into a different move. But, when I teach, even, it's like, for a technique, I say, more, if I know enough about the technique, and I'm just a huge nerd. Like, if I was already on my phone, just, it's randomly feeding me information about techniques and just YouTube videos. I'm studying footage. It's because, what else am I going to do with my time? Because I have to, because now I use that. It's like, people
Sure.
stop. It's professional development for everyone else. That's why I love my job, because I'm like, hey, I'm studying. Like, you asked me about this stuff. I'm soaking it all in, and I say, let's say a choke. I'm like, this is how the choke is supposed to work. Perfect condition. Boom. This is how I was actually taught it because he showed it differently. This is how I actually do it. And this
Yeah.
is how I felt it done on me. And those could be 5 different ways. Sometimes I'm like, all 5 of those ways are the same, isn't it? So let's stick to that way. And then sometimes it's not the same. But like those are really how because I remember seeing it when my instructor said this is how it's supposed to work. And he goes, okay. And then like when he does it, he does it a different way or whatever. And then like I would see how another instructor would teach it. And I would see my way. And then there are very slight variations. And then it's kind of funny because now that I go back and have to teach these techniques to white belts, I say, this is how I was taught it then. And I've modified it from here and I should be doing it like this still.
Yeah.
I've changed it. You like teaching you change this. I'm going back to this. Like, here's a crazy one. One of those ones that I'm like, I'm starting to go back to now is when you think of back control, you think seatbelt hooks. When I started jujitsu, seatbelt was new. Maybe it didn't even have a name. I
What
think
was
it
it
didn't
before
even say
seatbelt?
seat. Let me
Right.
get there.
Okay.
Okay. So seatbelt over under. I think we called it over under. I didn't even think it had the name seatbelt. But this was so 2006. So yeah, right around this time. I don't know, let's cross check the dates, but right around this time, Marcelo Garcia is becoming Marcelo Garcia
Okay.
and revolutionizing back control and back chokes and back takes and everything. But before that, in gi, back control wasn't even called back control. It was just taking the back or back mount, and you would rodeo grip like backpack style, grab the gi
Okay.
collars like a full Nelson. Sorry about
Yeah.
that. Like a full Nelson, and then back mount them, roll them face down. There was very, very few face-up finishes, actually. If you look at the old Gracie in action tapes, they didn't face-up finish anybody. They mounted them or took the back mounted them, slap, 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 choke face down.
Flat them out. Yeah.
So there wasn't, so things like that I remember. So I would tell people, I go, okay, if you're on the back, you want to do it like this? And so then you say, okay, why did seatbelt? Well, you didn't ask me, but sometimes those students will ask, well, then why is seatbelt now what everybody uses? And I tell them, I go, because you get a variety of things there. You get the choke if they fight this, you get the armbar if they fight the choke, and you get over under control so they can't slip down, and then up down you have the underhook or whatever. And then they're like, well, why would this one be superior? And I would tell them, okay, with this one, if you will never. Have you ever lost seatbelt because you get dragged over the top? That'll never happen if you have double unders, blah blah blah. And they're like, oh, I was like, but you don't have access to the choke until you back mount them. Like,
Right.
so there's give and take. And I go, and people like the variety of the seatbelt because you can do so much more jujitsu this way. And here we are. Everybody forgot about the rodeo grip or whatever it's called. But
Yeah.
everyone out there who loves rodeo grip, I bet they'll tell you, they're like, I've never lost back, or they'll say it like that. But what they really mean is like, they have a really, really good chance of staying connected more than a seatbelt because that's what it was for. Stay connected. Don't let them fight you. Roll them face down so they can't hurt you. Slap, slap, slap. Get the choke.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, so since I taught it that way, people are like, oh yeah, I'd rather get the back mount in the choke than just, constant hand fighting face up.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
you get to, but this is where you explore new jujitsu. Constant hand fighting face up. You get all this. You get all the systems. You get the straight jacket. You get all the other stuff.
yeah, and I think a lot of this advancement. I just had Pedro Valente Jr. on, and he's strictly self defense. They don't compete. For better or worse, whether there's people will criticize it sometimes, especially in the sport community. But I think that these as there's sort of a separation of the sport and street, it doesn't mean that one forgot about the other. Sport is fantastic, and I promise that somebody that focuses purely on sport will be probably okay.
I tell that to the parents. Let's make sure your kids know the sport, because if they're winning this position is supposed to simulate that they're in control in real life. That's why the sport exists. Like, you get points because you go from a neutral position where there's danger of a knockout to an advantageous position, and so the aspect of the sport jujitsu for control is great in the self-defense aspect. And even the techniques that you say you lose its applicability. One of them, I don't know, maybe people don't say this, but I always took offense to it if people said you can't use sport jujitsu in the street. And I'm like, And then I'm thinking, okay, what do people think is a purely gi sport technique? Spider guard, which was at the time that I met you was probably what I was known for,
Yeah.
was spider guard,
Yeah.
which I still use to this day. And I was like, are you crazy? This is the ultimate up kick. Like, I'm putting my foot in your biceps to be nice, because if I otherwise I would be putting it through your
Right.
face.
Yeah.
And I'm, look where it takes me to being a representative of Renzo Gracie and his most famous MMA up kick, like up
Right.
kick, spider guard, ultimate up kick. Like,
Yeah. And that's, it's true. And again, you're not forgetting that those things exist just because you're doing the sport.
right.
You don't
Frames are
forget,
still frames,
right.
blocked.
In the context of sport, you're not going to punch anybody, but you're still aware that you own a fist. And if you had to use it, you could. Um, so, as far as competing, you've competed a lot. I still see you're out there getting out.
I'm getting back into it again now.
Yeah.
I get back into it again now. I competed a lot back when I was in Charleston, and in Houston. I didn't compete as often because of just life circumstances. I was settling in, um, the loss of my wife at the time, and just kind of shifting into what I was going to be doing. There wasn't jujitsu was always there and a part of my life, but when I tell people that you there's only a couple of reasons that you compete. You're testing yourself, you're doing this, you're doing that. But like when you wanna what there are some times when you're a competitor, and like you're solely focused on like doing everything necessary to ensure that you get gold. Okay. And I remember those times in those preparations, because that was a different time for me then than it was later on in purple belt and brown belt, like later purple belt, brown belt days. And I was everything short of living in the gym,
Mm-hmm.
everything short of living in the gym. Like, I was running the training sessions on Saturdays as a blue belt, just as a volunteer, because I was like, hey, we're not doing anything Saturdays. Let's all get ready to win. And so like we were running those sessions. So I even now, my ability to train. There are some guys that I really envy here in the Houston area, because there's a lot of competition in jiu-jitsu now in Texas in general, but in Houston, because they're able to teach, be a coach, be whatever. Some work full-time jobs even still, and then they're competing also.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course there are some that are just full-time competitors and teachers, and then they have a good teaching staff so they can be more full-time competitors. And then there are some people that wear all the hats and they can do it all. I'm like entered the white belt ranks in the multiple hat side of jiu-jitsu, where you're
Sure.
business, it's
Running
a
the business.
teacher, you're a coach, where I made jiu-jitsu my life, but now it's like my life includes competition, but there was a point where my life was only competition.
Yeah.
And so
So let's talk. You mentioned the loss of your wife. Let's talk about when that happened and what you went through. And then also how did jujitsu help you through loss, and I have like 6 questions. Like, how did you adapt your life to being you're suddenly a single father, raising was he 3? Maybe
no,
was how
he
old
was
was
older. He
Nico?
was older.
Okay.
He was older.
Um,
He was the majority of her time at the end. He was like the ages of like 6 to 8 by this point.
okay.
And so he was around like 3 to 6 when we were in Charleston, and I was bringing him into the gym and into the academy. And so some background with Charlene: when she was younger, she had cancer, and the treatment for it left. I guess there was like effects on the heart after that, and so she ended up developing what is congestive heart failure very early. And when we got married, we kind of knew that there was very high likelihood that we are on a timeline. We we prayed for all of the advancements in medical science and technology as things were happening year by year. But there's a little, it's something, I don't know, there are some people where your loved one is taken from you and you're unprepared for it. And while I was unprepared for it in many ways, I am fortunate to know that we were trying to live every day knowing that, hey, we have only a certain number of these.
Hmm.
And so like when Nico was, when she found out Nico was, when she was pregnant, she was crying, and I didn't know if those were happy tears or not happy tears, because I think she knew what the doctors were going to tell her. And so, you know, I remember saying, "I'm support you whatever you do," knowing that she was going to, you know, go through with the pregnancy, and saying, but I was like, but like, don't, just like, don't leave me with the baby by myself.
Right.
you know, I was like, half joking, but I was like, I don't know. I wouldn't know what to do. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not a mom. And so, uh, yeah. So around, and life was good. She, got a pacemaker and defibrillator, was able to, when we were leaving Charleston, I had a chance to retire from the military. And so I took it because my business partner now is, his name is Docs. We grew up together like brothers. Our families came over from the Philippines, New Jersey together, here in Texas together, grew up together. And I called him when I first had the chance to retire, and I said, um, "Hey, I'm in quality assurance, and right now, do you have anything?" And they're like, "We're looking for a quality assurance manager right now." And I was like, "Oh, sweet!" At the company he's working at, Welker Engineering. And so I was like, "Yeah, let's see." So we did some video interviews, and they were like, "Yeah, we'd love to have you when you come into town. Let's talk." But it was all but I felt pretty sure about it. It's like all but guaranteed. Um, so I pushed the button. I retired, and this was fortunate in a lot of ways, because the timing of this was fortunate in a lot of ways, I'd like to say, because my idea, and what you knew of me, was I thought that maybe CMMA was going to have some locations around Charleston. I was going to retire out in Charleston, and
Yeah.
maybe I'd run one of those things, and my gym wouldn't be lime green and black. It'd be black and red, and it wouldn't smell like feet. It would smell like, it would,
Right.
but, uh, since the opportunity presented itself in Houston, we were like, "Hey, Nico's young. He's the only one of his cousins that's not there. Um, let's you know, let's push the button on it. You've got a great job. You're going to get the benefits that you were aiming for when you entered the military to begin with." And so we did that. And I don't know if it's the stress or the pay. Charleston was such a beautiful city, and like I have nothing but like just the most amazing memories. It felt like the prime of my life there. I would have said before Charleston that the prime of my life when I was partying and dancing and drinking and just living it up and getting fat when I was just
Yeah.
out at the club. Like I was prime, baby. But then up when I met Charleston, I was like, no, this is prime, like prime life right here. Um, just walking the beach every day or just whatever, just walking downtown every day. It's a beautiful place. And quality of life was good, and Charlene was able to maintain it there. Something about what maybe Houston's pace or just the house that we needed required two incomes now, and just things were different. I don't know, had to juggle Nico's school schedule, but the quality of her life, as far as what her pacemaker and her heart were able to do, it was not the same, like immediately not the same. And so at the time that it happened, it was like, oh my gosh, at what cost was this? Like, and so that was a lot of that. And so, when she passed away, or let's say this, she spent many, many, many months. I can't even. It's so hard for me even to remember. It's like how long she was there, just waiting for a heart transplant, because she had an event, and I was the one that that found her, that was there with her until 911 came, and we went to the hospital together. And Nico was there, her mom was there, and they followed up behind us. And those months, I wasn't training, of course, like I was training, but I was still training. And I'm sure that there were people in my life looking on the outside. They were like, "How could he be there and not there?" And I've probably told this story. I don't know if I've told this story to anyone. Like I've told it to many people before, but I don't know like on what scale this may be. But I remember telling her, because I'm sure, I don't even know if she asked me or if I just knew that it would be on her mind. And I would say, this is a lot. And I know that you have no way to express how, like, you're caged here, it feels like.
Yeah.
And I don't know another way that how my inside and my outside can feel the same. Like I feel imbalanced. But when I really like get it put on in jiu-jitsu and I'm just suffering, like you've been under somebody and you're like, man, this role is suffering. I was suffering. I was like, okay, suffering here, suffering here. You know what I mean? Not like
Yeah.
smile, yeah, we're fine, we're strong, and then suffering here. It was like, oh, like, yeah, hey, dude, look at him. He's in a terrible spot. And then I was truly in a terrible spot. And I was like, I'm underneath Mount, like terrible spots align,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And I don't know how healthy that was, to be honest with you. Because when I was done, I was alive still.
Yeah. I think
And
that,
so there you go. Like,
I mean, do you think that
recycled of that.
going through some of that suffering, on the mats while you're going through such a difficult time, I think that that's a cathartic thing, where you're learning how to survive
Yeah.
on the
It was
mats,
a
but
lot
it
of,
but it retrains your brain for the off the mat stuff,
yes.
you know.
And the off the mat stuff, I the other thing too is you learn to compartmentalize it, and so I'm sure it was cold and unexpressive, and there's a lot of regret in that too because I don't know how much it carried over to what I was putting on at that time. I couldn't. I was. Yeah, I don't know if
Yeah.
I could ever explain how I was trying to just manage so many things. Like my brain was on processing overload, so my outward appearance, I didn't know what it was like to anyone else.
Mhm.
But for me, I knew that it felt like I was just that was an extra physical toll to appear okay and functioning when I was under mount.
Yeah.
So when I was under mount, I was like, I can let it go and just have at me, you
Mhm.
know, have at me down here. And so there was, where else am I going to do that? Some people find that in running and then they'll just run until their knees fall off. And I did, but that's not the same. That's, I, what that felt like my knees falling off didn't feel like that. It felt like mount that I was never going to get out of.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and, but you learned how to not panic, and, and obviously, when you were going through all this, I was seeing through just the window of social media, with you, and, watching you, you post, watching was kinda like watching Nico grow up, a little bit. And I had this old jujitsu buddy that I was pulling so hard for because I knew what he has been through, but I'm watching him raise Nico and watching you 2, uh, you know, doing it in style, you know? Um, and I know that that's, the social media windows, you're always gonna that's a highlight reel, right, of our lives, but it was inspiring, man. I'm like, he's going through that stuff, and he's surviving, and he's raising this kid, and he's doing a great job at it, and and then you meet Claudia. How did that happen?
yeah, so those uh, I I had jujitsu for me and I understood what that meant. Someone, of course, they said, "Hey, she'd really look for a place to go for therapy for Nico." Uh it was my mom. I think it was my mom. There were so many voices that were just talking to me after the loss, and I remember uh just that resonating later on. And excuse me, when I looked up places to look for care. One of the places that was nearby was called and I credit them to everything too. It was a turning point, and I didn't know it was a turning point then. It's the Sugarland Christian Counseling Center, and it was nearby my house. And there was this lady that was there that was a former kind of administrator in the school district that I grew up in, and she looked like a lovely lady. I love, lovely older lady. And so, yeah, I was like, okay, let's do like a family session, like him and I, let's do him just by himself. Let's do some for me. And one of the things that she mentioned to me, and it was my driving force after, not that I didn't know. I thought I was calculating. This is just a jujitsu parallel too. I thought I was calculating things perfectly. I was like, oh, this is mapped out. but I had like a white belt, blue belt view, and there were so many things that I like down the road that I didn't know that I was going to need to be aware of. So one of the times, this is actually um, during the time period where maybe even the same conversation where I was talking to Charlene about the suffering of the physicality of jujitsu is something that needs to happen to me so that I can be okay for her and not fall apart too, because
Hmm.
one of us is strong. She said that she was talking like, when have someone in the future, just promise me she's a good mother. Just promise me she's a good mother. And I was like, I was crying and I was like, I'm not going to have anything left for anybody after this. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like I, I was just like, uh, what are you talking about?
Yeah. You couldn't see that
Like
yet.
I'm like lone wolf and cub after this. Like, what are you talking about? But she was like, no, she goes, you're thinking that now, but you're still young. She goes, you're still young. And so she goes, but so just, she goes, so just, she was basically like, shut up. She was like, still like, she was my wife. So she's like, shut up. Listen to what I'm saying. She was like, shut up. When the time happens, just make sure she's a good mother for Nico. And so I was like, okay, sorry.
That's powerful.
Anyways, so when I meet this lady, at the counseling center, we were, this is, I don't remember how many sessions it was in the first few, maybe one or two. She said something very similar, and it reminded me that, because I was really, after that conversation, not considered. I was like appeasing her, still being a regrettably dumb husband. Like, yeah, okay. But I was like, inside, I was like, nah, I'm done. Lone wolf income,
Yeah.
lone wolf income. And so, fast forward, the lady at the Sugarland Counseling Center says, and when the time is right or whatever, put put somebody in your life, because you're going to have to consider that he's older. And so how you court her, because most kids, she said something like, most kids won't see their parents court each other.
Yeah.
And so they grow up with their parents in this stage. So she goes, this is important now, that when you court her, that he sees you court, first of all, that he's seeing somebody worthy of courting, and then that he sees you court her how you would assume that he's going to court somebody in the future. And I'm like, oh crap, I have to like teach him about women. You know what I mean? Like, so, if I'm lone wolf and cub, he's gonna know nothing of women. He's like, women? Like, I mean, he's not
Yeah.
gonna, but puberty will take over. But you know what I mean? Like,
Well, it's a good way to show leadership to your son, that
and
he
so
sees
that
that you're
was
doing it
like,
right.
that actually was kind of the catalyst for my brain to have gain a new perspective. And I thought, okay, now I already thought that my brain had switched, and that when he was born, I'm like, I'm living life as a dad.
Hmm.
And then when Charlene passed away, I was faced with, I am the parent only right now, the only representative. But this lady was letting me know that, hey, first of all, you had been given foresight, by his mom, by your wife, that there needs to be a representative of who women are, and what, like, how to interact. How could I teach him? How could I teach him how to be a husband if I'm not a husband, kind of thing? And so, uh, yeah. So everything after that was like, okay, what will life be like, and how will I show what the next parts are? I got to behave. Like, I can't, you know what I mean? Like, it's different. Remember, I'm in a different, what would become now new peaks in my life, because this life was not like the life that he was born into, which was not like the life that I thought what single life would be like, which was when I was in my worst part of my,
Sure.
worst shape
No,
of my life.
you've grown and matured, and
And so I was like, okay, I met Claudia through family friends. When we met, I was using my logical brain first. Thank goodness.
yeah,
Right? Most people
right.
don't. And I remember thinking, like, okay, we're going to have to all be play dates first. And if the chemistry really sparks, then it's like it's not like can only be one spark. And so it was just a bunch of that. Like, can we all do homework? Can we all? And so I don't know if that maybe was too okay. So we dated, of course. And so before our kids met, we talked about life. Our first date was like just like our views on religion, just things that, very first date esque, but
Foundational,
like,
yeah.
yeah, very foundational. But like oh, you're, of course, you find things that are like, oh, wow, yeah, this is really good connections. Let's see where it goes. And the next thing for me logically was like, okay, uh, do we trust each other enough that we're to the point that our children can meet? But like, if it's not romantic, how would that be? And so it's like, okay, if they're just play dates, then they'll always just have play dates and we'll always just be at the library and it'll just always be neutral. That's it. Because I'm sure that mom can have friends and Nico can see that dad can have friends and just we'll have friends that have families and kids. And so the romantic side doesn't have to be, this is what I was thinking. The romantic side doesn't have to be what is it's about. Like, hey, can you kids get along? Can you whatever? And then we're doing that. No, no, no. She would do her work. I was doing whatever I was doing my work. The kids were doing homework. We would meet. They would go to the playground and we would say goodbye. And like we would do that more. We would hang out more, and it was just, you know, over time, over months, it was invited to parties. It was meet families. It was this. It was that, and it was more natural. And at the same time, yes, we were just developing our relationship. She was learning about me, jujitsu, and just, being us. And that process felt like it was like not a process, I guess. It was just, I started it out being very robotic about it. Like, I thought I was done. I was pretty sure I was done. I'm not sure. I'm not so sure anymore. These people had foresight. Charlene had foresight. The therapist had some foresight. But now I need to let me let me do my thing. Let me see what I should be doing to make sure that this is. I tried to put myself in his shoes as a kid growing up and just observing, like, what would that be? Like, I use my wild imagination, like, creativity and the thing that I guess that really keeps me going and passionate about anything. I use that and I put myself in his shoes and I just use my wild imagination to just see into his multiverse about like everything that he was going to see. And is this the right setting? Is this the right person? Is this whatever? And from that point of view, I felt like it was. Um, she happened to be the absolute right person. She's the special ed coordinator of Alief Independent School District right now. And who knows what the reason is, but we all feel like everybody's ADHD hyperactive and all of our kids are a hyper more version than that, right? Like
Yeah.
a 2.0 version of that. And so I'm like, what a lady to be able to figure him out because you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so at least she was going to try to understand him more, as much as mother him as he would let her into his life. Like, at least that was the sense that it made to me. And so it was like, this is at least somebody that would, like, I don't know how to explain that, but like, because she's dealing with behavior, she's always like, okay, what is the function of this? Like, he's not just doing this. And she's on board with that instead of just like her parenting style match. I guess that was the thing.
Okay.
Over time with knowing each other, we were like, oh, the parenting styles match. I actually talked to her about this. Like, hey, this is actually a crazy benefit of a blended family because you meet somebody and you don't know if your parenting styles match until you're a parent. And so, like, how many parenting styles was I not a match for where romantically I was a match? And you just don't see it because it's an afterthought.
Sure. Or you're already kind of invested before you meet kids and
Yes.
Yeah.
And because Charlene, we had that powerful conversation, it was not an afterthought. It was the forethought. The kids, well, my kid, but then when there's other kids involved, okay, all of the kids, must be something that all of the kids can be like, my childhood wasn't traumatic. Like, I didn't understand what was going on. Like, I understand my parents. We just want them to understand, like, and we talk to them that way. Now that they're older, we explain things. We literally, we do things that our generation, our parents didn't do that. They gave us the punishment. They didn't tell us the reason. They didn't tell us how to fix it. But I learned a lot from the military. They were like, hey, if you got a suggestion, go fix it. And so, like, I took that and I went to my son. I go, both my sons and my daughter, I say, listen, this is the best I've got. This is the best I've got. I'm giving all my tools. I've given you all the hacks to you for you to fix this, whatever behavior it is. And I'm at a frustration point, and this is what you're seeing. I go, this is what it is. You're going to get over it, I hope. And in the future, when it's your turn, like this was better than what I got with my dad. Yours will be better. Yours will be better if you remember this conversation. And now that they're older, they're like, I understand why you say this. And I get less attitude, and I would you still get the teenager attitude, you still get the but like I ask, do you understand? And they're like, yes. But there are times where they say no, and I'm like, what don't you understand?
Right.
And then so we gotta go, and they'll be like, why are you thinking like that? I go, I don't know why I'm thinking like that. It might be wrong, but this is what now you understand me, and you can be mad at me now, but that's where it came from. I might be completely wrong, but prove me wrong, dude. Prove me wrong. Like,
well, everything that you've just described in your intention and how you met Claudia, I can't think of a better way to go about it. I mean, that story is so much better than any other possible scenario that I could think of, and most people don't do it like that.
I don't know how it's done. Like I had no idea, but like I said, Charlotte had the foresight to put it in my mind to make it about the future generation. And it was reinforced by just more echoes of that with people that were coming into and out of my life. And so the fact that I had people around me that cared enough to echo that sentiment during a time where things felt right. Yeah.
Like, and you were smart enough to hear the wisdom coming from those multiple sources.
Like there was times and people and relationships that I had during that time too, where that could have been the path that I went. And there were people in my life that were letting me know, like, this is a red flag. And I didn't ignore it this time. Like, I was in a point where I was like, I need advice from everyone because I'm not who I was before. I think I've got it figured out, but like, I used to have somebody to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah.
And so now the rest of the people that were in my life, I love all of you. I mean, whoever I spoke to during them, because something, got me here. But yeah, they kept echoing that same sentiment, and like things kept, this positive reinforcement loop kept happening. And so we kept growing as a blended family.
That's outstanding.
And, yeah.
And
like the things that were like red flags in other places went away, and it was just like, okay, that's not, this is the way. And then just, we got here. Well,
and now you've got a whole family that you guys all train. You posted a picture earlier this week of you guys all together, and it's a fantastic thing to see. So when you got married, had you hadn't opened your gym yet?
So Claudia and I got married after I opened the gym.
Okay.
But we had been together for a long time. We were living together.
Okay.
We were a family unit already. A lot of people, when we got married, were like, we thought you guys were married.
Yeah.
I thought you guys were married already. But we opened the gym in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Like September or August 2019 is around the time that I got the space.
Yeah.
And COVID happened, and we got married during COVID.
Yeah.
Like the end of the year of the COVID year.
What was that like, making that leap for opening your own academy?
Okay. Again, these things in my life just kept reinforcing each other, and I'm so glad that I made the choices that I did. Like when people go back and they say, hey, would you ever do anything different? I was like, no, I can't say that I would do anything different, because it would mess up all of this butterfly effect style.
Yeah.
Because when I was in the military, or when I went into the military, the idea was my mom gave me the foresight. Yeah, these powerful women, they know some things, you know what I mean? So my mom gave me the foresight. She was like, are you really considering the military? And I go, yes. And at this time I was actually going to go to the Army. But one of my god brothers was like, no, you're more the Air Force's style. Trust me. And that's all when he goes, Air Force is more your style. Trust me. I was like, so like, anyways, my mom goes, okay. she said this is by the time I learned that I was transferring to the Air Force actually. And she goes, okay, if you do this, she goes, if you enjoy it, be careful, be safe. But if you retire, you're going to have a lot of really, really good medical benefits because she's a nurse and she's a utilization review nurse at the time, which dealt specifically with insurance stuff. Like she was the nurse that looked at the act and looked at the justification and made the two connect. And so she goes, that's by far educational benefit. Yes. But like, by far the medical benefits and the pension, of course. And so she goes, and so I go, okay, yes. And so when remember when I pushed the button in Doc's, he was like, okay, let's go. So we pushed the button, boom. My family life circumstances happened and changed. I remember also a perspective change that I had was I am not going to, or the job that I was going to do for money, I understood that differently. I used to be like work was I go do my job and they pay me for that. And I was so hurt by everything with my family time and my space and this giant house that I didn't end up needing and foreclosing on because we didn't have two incomes. And I was like, no, man, that salary was money for me to be away from my family. Like it was a bribe for me to be away from my family. So I'm going to make that money on my own to be around my family. And so I was roofing, I was doing a lot of things at the time. And the opportunity came to open the academy because my professor, Brian was thinking about opening another academy in the area that I was already looking at and living at before Charlene passed away. And Docs, we were already trying to figure out, hey, how are we going to make a gym happen, And yeah, all of that lined up because he was like, hey, do you want to teach again? Like, you ready to teach again? And I was like, yeah. He goes, you ready to compete again? I was, yeah. He goes, you ready to, he was asking me these questions. Essentially, like, maybe he's going to want to open a gym.
Yeah.
And so at the same time, my dad came back from a trip from the Philippines and he had an opportunity because one of his family friends was there and his cousin. And she goes, Mike has an opportunity to open a gym here. And so I talked to Claudia and I said, what do we do now? And so she goes, okay, well, we can't go to the Philippines, but the world is telling you, hey, why don't you try this gym thing? Like, this is two people that are asking you now if you wanted to open a gym. And I'm like, what do we got to do to, whatever. And like, because of the military, I'm able to, like, with my pension, provide a certain amount of quality of life that with my family that, hey, if I can give this a go now's the time.
Yeah.
The kids don't
There's a
require much.
safety net.
Yeah, the kids don't require much. We have medical no matter what. I have my small little pension. I can do private lessons. I can take part-time jobs. I can literally just clock in to take the paycheck so that way I can do whatever. And we'll give this jujitsu a go because it feels just right for us. We're already training. Like the kids were already doing jujitsu. Claudia actually wasn't training at this point. Her story comes later. She wasn't training at this point, but I was training. She was doing marathons at this point in her life. So yeah. So my dad and Dox's dad were business partners in the Philippines opening business. And that's how he talked to the same cousin that was like helping them do business then. And so here we are trying to do business. And the same lady is like, hey, we have a shot here. And so when Brian was like, let's do Renzo in Houston. Let's make this thing big.
Yeah.
And so yeah, as soon as I committed to like, you know what, I'm going to do this, we were off and we signed the lease to a place within a week, man. I think.
Nice.
Like we talked about it. We sat down and talked about it like on a Wednesday, met some people and trained over it at one of the locations in Lake Houston. Shout out to those guys. We all had us and the owners and the black belts, the Renzo Gracie black belts out there had like a rolling session. And he introduced me to the other academy owners at that time. And he was like, this is how we do business now. If you want, this is what it is. This is what it is. This is the next level. This is the other side.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And it felt right with Brian because everything that I wanted out of jiu-jitsu, he was like, oh, yeah, that's what I wanted out there. Same spot. Bro, you're the guy. Apparently I'm a talker. So he's like, run is cool. Like, run is cool. So, we did it within a week. And then the place that we got, it was a small spot, just a one section retail location.
Hmm.
That was a flooring company. So we had like these beautiful sectioned out patterns on the floor, random patterns on the floor
Already there.
already there, cleared out. There's nothing like blank walls, blank everything. There was a back section that used to be like probably a shower display. So we made it a sticker wall, and then we threw up an oversized logo, and that was the start of it. And we had so many kids on that mat to the point where it was like, we need a bigger spot. And yeah, we grew into the location that we're at now. And so just celebrated 6 years, and it's been wild. So yeah, that's kind of how that happened. Like it was, I once I started jujitsu, of course, I felt like jujitsu was going to be my life forever. And I felt like I was going to own academy.
Yeah.
I
You
tell my
mentioned that
students,
earlier in Charleston.
I tell my students all the time. I remember being a blue belt, and that's funny because that was around the time that I met you. I remember being a blue belt, and there was a guy that came into the gym, and he was a fake black belt, but he was big as shit, anyways. Like he was fucking big, dude. And so, uh, one of the purple belts, it might have been Joey. I think it was Joey.
Okay.
Just handled him.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, oh man, Joey's not even Casey. Like Joey's not even Casey. Casey would have demolished this guy. And then I remember thinking, like, what if a guy like that walked into my academy when if I own one? And blue belt me was like, I don't know if I could take that guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's one of those things. It's like, I don't know if I want to do this. Like, there was a little bit of that where it's like, I'm
Sure.
pretty small, dude. Like, I don't know if I don't know who's viewing this to know if they've met me in real life or see me by comparison, but I'm like 5'4", and I'm about 140 right now, 140, 142, 145, something on any given day. And I'm not even the biggest person in my kids class. You know what I mean? Like there's some kids in my kids class that are bigger
Right.
than me, legit.
Yeah.
And so I remember thinking that at that time. But by the time I was like a brown belt, and like jujitsu proves itself. Like it proves itself. And like, okay, next thing I thought was, or I didn't think about not next thing I thought. What I came to find out was, or what I came to learn about myself was like, but I trained with Joey. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like these feats that my teammates were doing, where I'm like, oh, I'm never gonna do that. I'm out there like that guy's gone, and we're getting after it week after week, and they're sharpening me, and I didn't know it over time. And that goes with all the training partners that would come after them. And when I moved to Houston, it was just the jujitsu in Houston. It was fantastic. It was like, of course you feel like every school that you're at is like the best school. And I remember being at Charleston, I remember thinking, oh, we're so cutting edge. Cause like we weren't a pure jujitsu school, but we had jujitsu nerds. We had some MMA guys. So we were heel hooking everybody in the gi. Like we were it was, you know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
felt like we were like revolutionary. Uh, and when, and it was tough training. It was hard training. And when I moved to Houston, I was at Revolution Dojo with Jeff Messina right when I moved to Houston, because that's where we ended up settling. Charlene and Nico and I was near that area, and just the top competition school here. And just it felt the same. Like it was the same. I was like, oh my gosh, eating me alive in here. There's no way, like it felt like an animal. And then all of the things happened with Charlene. It was like I literally my life got pulled back to where I was with my parents and my neighborhood out here, and things with Claudia, and she was in another side of town, completely opposite from there. And I was like, what I learned now and what I tell my students is jujitsu will be here when your life is ready for it. Meaning like, okay, if I end up being back over there or whatever. And so, there are a lot of reasons that people have to leave gyms. And I felt fortunate in that I had maintained good relationships, because when you and I came up, that wasn't a thing where people cross trained or like you left gym to another gym. And, but like, I don't know, I guess there's also people can understand your intentions. And I never had any intention for jujitsu except for I just loved it. Like, and I found a place where it was awesome. And I think that everybody knew that. And so like, I was in the military, went in like for a lot of it. and so I couldn't make rank, easily because of that fact. And so then people are also like, "Well, who you belong to?" And I was like, "What do you mean belong to?" I didn't even know what lineage was actually. That it was an issue when I
Yeah.
moved to Houston. But then the thing that was unique about Houston and me coming here, which is awesome, is the Houston Jiu-Jitsu culture was ahead of its time because it didn't feel like they were too there. There's a few flag bearing things going on, but like everybody cross trained. There was big, huge open mats, and it was like it was awesome. And so yeah, it was a really good community. And when I finally opened the academy and people were coming in to try jujitsu, and the things that I didn't think I was capable of as a blue belt in this same body, but older now, I was doing, and I was like, oh man, like I'm, it's jujitsu proved itself. Like it proved itself. And so I I have all of the, similar stories to whatever. Like, oh man, this so and so's dad is a D1 wrestler. He wants to try the class. It's like, oh, what am I like? Oh, okay, yeah, jujitsu can prove itself if you know what I mean. Like under the right circumstances, this is the things that I've learned. You know, can
Well,
affect. Yeah,
I mean, I've been wrecked by guys your size. And uh, if folks don't know my size, I'm 6'2", 6'3", and 200. For I think in Charleston MMA, I was probably 270 pounds. Um, and
did you
yeah,
smush me? Did you
what was that?
smush me? Did you smush me?
I did smush you a little bit. I was able to kind of smush you a bit, but honestly, spider guard. I had no idea how to deal with it.
Good, good. I'm
So
pretty sure you like smushed me and my legs were in the way.
yeah. Oh, and that's what I got away with. But I still got just crushed by other people. Actually the first class I ever went to at Charleston MMA, I walked in there. I had been training the traditional the Japanese jiu-jitsu in Columbus before I moved to Charleston. And I walked in there. I'm like, okay, I'm a large guy. I'm a Marine. I've been doing this Japanese jiu-jitsu. I think I can handle myself. I puked during that first
Oh,
class. Into that little crappy bathroom in the back.
yeah,
I was like, excuse me. And I ran off into the bathroom. I was like, holy shit. I was like, okay, this is totally
different,
different. It's totally
different.
different. I had no clue. But obviously you come back, you keep going. But yeah, the training in those days was, it was tough in the best kind of way. But yeah, I love how the culture has changed. The availability of jujitsu has changed. But the culture changing in that you can cross train and that we have open mats. We get people from all these different schools that come to open mats, and I actually changed gyms earlier this year. I was at Team Chitwood, and now I'm at Gracie, Ohio. But I still go up to Chitwood open mat and I go see my friends, and it's okay. It's not this West Side Story kind of deal.
Yeah,
And I love it, and I love the fact that I can drop in when I travel. I was in Dallas a couple months ago, and if I had a weekend there, if I was going to have a weekend there, I was going to come down. I was going to come down to drop in with you, but just during the week I didn't have time. But I was able to drop in at a couple of different academies while I was in Dallas, and had a blast. And so I appreciate how that culture has changed. That it's not some sort of creant kind of trader thing if you go and learn something from somebody else. Um, so your gym now, it's beautiful. By the way,
thank you.
every time I see a picture of the gym, I'm like, that's done right. It's nice and bright, clean, and it's a good looking jujitsu gym.
Thank you.
Um, so what would you say? How has jujitsu changed you
Um,
as a man, a father, a husband?
okay. How has jujitsu changed me as a man? Okay, the that we I said it a bunch of times where people had foresight, and it's almost like foresight practiced for me. You know what I mean? Like your decision making. There are some live things going on, but if your foresight projections accounted for a lot of them, hopefully that it's a variable that's pretty similar to what you thought you were going to get out of it and you got an answer for it kind of thing. And like the more it must be like a maybe a black belt or an academy owner thing where you just start drinking the Kool-Aid, man, because it's decision making practice. And so like if you start to understand that literally everything that you do is decision making practice, then and that it's not like this one or two things is the only thing I'm deciding. I'm deciding several things down the road. You know, yeah, it slows down the process, but that's, kind of why jujitsu looks slow on the outside because there's lots of decisions going on and it just happens that way. And there are some people that are so they've they understand their decision making to a finer degree and they just march forward in life knowing that which decisions they're making. Some people are more careful and they have to calculate a little bit longer, and you see that on the mat as well, and they do things a different way. But that also lets me know that, as a man, father, and a husband, that like the relationship that I have with these people are like, that's a jujitsu analogy. Oh, it's like a relationship where I have my different partners. I can't do these moves with that person. I can't do these moves with that person. Like, not that it's out of bounds to do so. You know what I mean? It's if they want to learn something, we can do those things. But it's like, there are so many different ways to approach it. Why do I have to use the same way? Like that's what jujitsu is. Like on the mat, I'm sure every guest that you've had and that you will have is almost like tells the same tale of how it's a microcosm for what's going on, in life. And that's it, because life, to me at least, feels like it's just a bunch of decision making, and jujitsu is just decision making practice. A lot of decision making practice. And it's never just what's in front of your face. Sometimes what's in front of your face is a trick.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know
You've
what I
been
mean?
set up. Yeah.
Yeah, you've been set up. So it's like, wait, my kids did the dishes before I asked them to do the dishes. This shouldn't be here. You know what I mean?
What are they about to ask me for?
What is up? You know what I mean? Like I wanted to take this guy's back and he's in turtle. Like, I don't trust you. You're going to re-roll me.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Where's that far side arm? Am I about to get gator rolled? Yeah.
Yeah. See,
Yep.
I didn't even say much. And you like,
No, I know. Yep. It's, I've fallen into that trap a bunch, and I've learned how to avoid it. What as far as somebody that's been training now for a lot of years, I mean, you'd be 20 years next year, right? How are you balancing like intensity with longevity?
man, I'm dealing with all that now.
Yeah.
So, choosing training partners wisely, that's always going to be number one. I don't even have to consider just myself and my own age at this point. Nico, I haven't made a post about it yet, but at our 6 year anniversary, Nico was 16, and so he enters the adult ranks. So blue belt, a juvenile blue belt, if he were to compete. So still competing against 16, 17 years old, but he's wearing a blue belt, and
Yeah.
we go to open mat, and I gave a speech, something to the effect of like, because him and one of his training partners, Catherine, is also 16. She got her blue belt as well. And I told them, hey, you guys are like experiencing adult appropriate experiences, and you have to be safe.
Yeah.
Like, you are going to be in adult oriented experiences here, age appropriate, but dangerous in a way for you, because
Yeah.
what if they just, you look like a small person and they don't know,
Sure.
And so like, I make the safety issue and how we train and the intensity and that stuff is very much present on my mind. And a lot of our students and kids compete, and the training that I have to put them through, I make it purposefully technical and more of mind training, because the body training, I'm not going to force them
Yeah.
to a point, because it's individual. There's a lot of like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it and how to scale it, but like, force a lot of people through, and then you'll break a few on the way that didn't get a chance, and like they got pushed past their limits. And some people need to push their limits, but we all have different limits, and so the same training can't, at the same intensity, can't always be the answer. You know what I mean? And so, in any case, um, for me, I have to scale that with my training partners. I have to manage my sleep, which my worst thing ever is like how I manage my sleep is the worst. And um, how do I say it? The more I have to acknowledge that the more experienced and technical I am, the more I'm responsible for being careful for myself and my partner. So there's like more than just the fight where I'm like, I'm a black belt. I gotta whoop you now because like I don't want to injure them too because like there's a gear that they might be hitting on me where I'm like, man, I can't really match your gear right now. You're gonna get really hurt, but I need to calm you down. And there's a lot to manage with that. And so using jujitsu in a different way to slow things down where you're like, oh, I didn't get the round that I thought that I was going to get out of this guy because I just got stuck in his guard all day. And it's like, that wasn't very exciting. Last time I rolled with Mike, he was doing some spider monkey stuff. And it's like, well, last week I could take spider monkey stuff, but this week I'm too tired for spider monkey stuff. So you're going to
Yeah.
get closed on Mike. You know what I mean? And it's not any different. And I'm not like cheating them around. I'm going to give them everything that I got from this position, but it's like, I should use my experience and technique to be able to do that. And if my students are mindful of it early, hopefully they're mindful of it later because that's the lesson I'm supposed to give them, right? Like, hey guys, I broke my body along the way. Don't do what I do. Do what I'm doing now, and I'm being
Right.
careful.
And protect
You
your
know?
training partner.
Yeah, like match energy and do this and that. That's number one thing for me is like make sure that you communicate and you match energy with your training partner. Because what people need to do physically to keep it going is really different. I do jujitsu more than most people. And so that means that I guess you can say I'm oiled up for it all the time, where people are sedentary and then they go do jujitsu and then injuries occur. So I kind of just stay primed for it because I'm always moving and always teaching and always whatever. So I get the benefit of that. Um, and I try to be mindful that it is a benefit that I need to exercise or else I will incur injuries if I, don't stretch or don't do whatever.
I get sore when I don't train.
Yeah, exactly. You feel like you're just like cement setting in, and I need to just mix it up.
Yeah. If you have somebody, white belt, maybe early blue belt, and they're struggling, whether it's they feel like they're not improving, or what do you say then?
It really would depend on what they're measuring their improvement on. So a lot of time, you know what I mean? So I would talk to them about that. A lot of times there's a few different things that they're not improving on. If they need to improve on some things. Let's see. We'll get one thing out of the way. Let's say there is a white belt that is struggling to improve because they don't have the physical ability to do certain things. Okay. That is where it's like, listen, you're a white belt. There's so much more jujitsu out there, and you just haven't found your thing yet. But that's why we're doing this. Because a lot of times people are like, or I'm not going to say a lot of people, but I'm a man of a certain age where closed half guard is pretty good for everybody. And you'll get some white belts that are struggling with the physicality of jiu-jitsu that haven't found the safety of like a nice good closed guard or a closed half guard where they can just survive a storm kind of a position, and they just haven't been around long enough to make it work.
Right.
And so you're just encouraging them that, hey, this takes time, it's a process, and what you feel like is not progress will happen for many many months, not just now. And I have to kind of not be blunt, but make sure I tell them that this feeling that you're feeling will never go away.
Right.
And you need to be you need to be comfortable with letting me know like I'm never gonna get better than this. And I just why am I doing this? And you're like you're in the training room with all of the same people that are all of having the same slumps and valleys. One day, 6 months down the road, when the new person comes in and you finally
Isn't
sweep
that an
someone,
amazing feeling?
and you're like, okay, okay, and then that person and then this person will have a conversation like everybody sweeps me, and I'm like, hold
Yeah.
on, like you'll
Yeah.
find a guard one day, you'll find a guard pass one day that will, and then it's different with everyone, So in that aspect of where they say like they're just being overwhelmed by jujitsu, and I'm like, listen, jujitsu is overwhelming. Like, you don't know where it goes, and you don't know which path to take, and you're still standing in a parking lot full of bikes. Like,
Yeah, it's like being lost in the
like,
woods sometimes. You know,
yeah,
you go into
yeah.
a circle, you're like, "Wait a minute, I was here, but I don't know how I got, back to the same spot again."
What I do, and so that I try to make that happen less and less as an instructor. And when I take that feedback, I'm like, okay, how do I make these people feel less lost? And that's what I get to do now. Like, that advice question used to be, I couldn't do anything about it except for tell them that. Like, if I was a fellow student, I'd be like, listen, bro, keep showing up. You're doing good. I
Yeah.
promise. Like, you tell them that, and they're like, you say that to everybody. But everybody, if you show up, will do good. I promise. And so, anyways, as a as an instructor, you hope that the feedback that you get is like pushes you to reformulate the way that you're doing the training so that it doesn't, like, that person doesn't feel that anymore, and that people coming in won't feel that then. And I've kind of modified what my class is like like the way that I used to hold my class is not the way I hold my class now. When I opened my academy, and I stay a nerd on martial arts, even on the coaching side. I study coaching. I study coaches of all different sports, like, and to understand that side of what that is. And there's a lot of this ecological jujitsu training versus drilling training and whatever. And so, what my take is, like, the reason that it's so polarizing is because it will never be a universally accepted thing. But that's a good thing, because the concept of ecological training will much more benefit that person that feels like they'll never understand jujitsu, because then you can have a class where those people, let's say I have brand new people. I'm like, listen, guys, you don't know anything about jujitsu. So I'm not going to show what I was going to show. You're going to play the position I was going to show.
Okay.
And they're like, what? And they're like, no, no, no. Listen, you just got to get around his legs. And then after they're done that, it's like, okay, what I was going to show was, and then now they're like, understand what this chaos is, at least in one part. And then we stick to that situational training for a while so that, like, at least when that part comes up in the round, they'll
Yeah.
be like, oh, okay, I get the chaos. And so I do that a lot more and more. And with athletes or people that understand scoring or any kind of competition, I use the jujitsu sport competition route right away to explain jujitsu. Right away. Right away. Treat this like a sport right away. You will understand. And I give them the rules right away. Like, there is no, okay, hold on. Don't quiz any of my white belts, but I would like to think that right now, all of my white belts can score a match.
Good.
Now, I don't
That's a
know what population of total number of students in most academies, because there's, until I started really doing this, there is not a lot of my older students too that could score a match.
yeah.
But they know the point system, and they understand that I teach it every day and I talk to it. But if you can score a match, you can see who's winning or losing, and you know what winning or losing feels like. But now it's like assigned a numerical value, so it,
Right.
for those people, like
It
athletes,
hits. Yeah.
it hits right away. But even then, somebody that watches sports can get it. I got a story about, like teaching and making people feel like they understand jujitsu. This is kind of a different roundabout way about it, but there were these two guys that were in town for one of my training partners' weddings. He goes, "Hey man, I brought him to open mat. They've never done jujitsu before, and I brought him. He's talking to me. He goes, I brought him to you. He's been teaching jujitsu, and I was like, let's go." And he started laughing. He goes, "I'll be back in like 15 minutes." And so I taught these two breakdancers jujitsu in like 5 minutes. I explained the point system. I said, this is a takedown, this is a guard pass, this is a guard sweep, this is knee mount, this is back control. Like, I showed him, like, you hold this position for 3 seconds, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, that's it. I go, that's it. Off to the races. And I just had them go against each other. And one guy was framing, not letting the guy pass the guard, and the other guy was like neat
Really?
Toriano passing right off the bat. One guy framing, one guy Toriano passing right off the bat.
That's
because because
incredible.
I because I just taught them the game of it. And so
Yeah.
that was when I was like, okay, okay, these guys obviously have a physical ability and a knowledge that are high level thinking, because they're good with their bodies. That's an anomaly. So when I scale this back to somebody that's never done a sport before, not interested in sports, and doesn't have that mindset, and doesn't know what scoring is or what mount is or what guard is, how do I do it for them? And I say, okay, I'm going to show you this position. I'm going to say, you put your knees inside your partner's armpits, cross your feet around their back, and you hug their head. And I go, the longer that you can stay here, the better. Ready? Begin. And then they have a measure of success now.
Yeah.
Because, like, hey, I held them for like 40 seconds. we know that 40 seconds isn't good enough, but they don't feel crushed when it's like the minute's over and they had it for 40 seconds, they lost it in the last 20.
So
And now they're just playing in close guard for a little bit.
that's
So
really, really, I like that a lot. When I've talked to some new people that are getting ready to like go do their first class and they're like nervous because they think they're like getting into, they think it's going to be the Thunderdome when they show up.
yeah.
And
And
they're getting
sometimes it
ready.
is.
Well, but what I've said in the past is, treat it like it's a game. Keep it playful, have fun, right? But to actually go that step further and start off by teaching them the scoring, I love
Right off
that.
the bat.
I love that.
Right off the
I think that's, I mean, I'd never heard it until you just said it, but I think everybody should do it.
How else would you like, I was trying to think of another way to contextualize it.
Yeah.
For anyone coming into it was for the kids initially.
Yeah.
I used to, when I've had the first competition for this came from CMMA, now that I think about it. The first time I ever did this format of what my current class is now was that new breed championship that we won that you were talking about. Those Saturday classes, Casey, for people that don't know Casey, he is like monk style, like not very many words, man, a few words. Like you're not gonna get a lot out of him. Like I felt like I was more like of a technique translator sometimes. Like Casey would show it, and they'd be like, "Did you get that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I got it."
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Can you show me later?" I'm like, "I can show you later." But like so, and he was while he was great at coaching, didn't always verbalize or didn't always go to take the team to the tournament and do whatever. So when I was like, "Hey, would you let me run it so that way we could all get on board?" He's like, "Absolutely." I think that was probably like when he found that everybody wanted to go that first time, he was probably like, "Am I gonna have to put together a whole bunch for all these, for all these animals that don't listen to me, blah blah blah." And so when I said, "Hey, can I run it?" He was like, "Go ahead." So now I was like with a problem, like who's gonna sit in the chair? And I thought to myself, well, you're all gonna have to sit in each other's chairs.
Mm-hmm.
So who here knows how to score and ref? And none of us knew. And so I was like, guys, so we had a ref court. I was like, you're going to have to learn the rules of the freaking tournament we're going into. And so that new breed team, and who knows if they remembered it now, but at least for that tournament, they remembered how to score and how to do whatever so that we could influence the ref and coach their guy and do whatever. And, be a coach, be strategic about it. So when I'm teaching these kids to compete, I'm like, okay, you know how to move through jiu-jitsu. This is before I developed more of a system. But I was like, how can I get you to win the game? And I taught it like how you teach baseball in PE school. Like everybody's going to play everybody's position. And that's what we did at Charleston MMA too. And so I said, okay, you two are athletes, you two are coaches, you're the referee, you're the timekeeper, you're the scorekeeper. And then we play 1 minute round. Switch. And then like we would do that. Stuff like that. Like just, does everybody know the endeavor we're in?
Right? Like, like, what are we doing here? Yeah.
Does everybody know the endeavor we're in? And so then there we go. And when I teach my class, I teach it in the format where it's like, this is what would happen here. This is what would happen here. So it's not like out of order. Most times, like my takedown will relate to the position we're getting to the ground, even if it's as simple as pull guard to here, because you come into class and then we're already on the floor and it's like, all right, we're going to start here. And then you're like, oh, how did we get there? So like everything starts from standing in my class. We grip fight every class. Everybody knows a measure of judo. Like if they were to go to a judo school and be put in a placement test, they might not know all the vocabulary, but they could take some people down.
But they'd have some concepts. Yeah.
Yeah. And like there's 0 classes that I have that we don't grip fight and do takedowns. Like every class, kids, like adults, gi, no gi, Monday through Saturday, you're going to learn how to take people down, or you're going to learn how to jump over somebody that's pulling guard. And if you like guard, kill everybody with your guard pull, because we need you to simulate the rest of the jiu-jitsu community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
we have our guard guys. Like we need you to simulate the rest of your jiu-jitsu community. Pull your guards. Like everyone else, that you're here for self-defense. You're not going to like learn to take somebody down, do this, do that. And they play, and grip fight is a game.
Yeah.
Like you're not even in that, you're not taking each other down. Hold each other's biceps. Whoever gets to the back wins.
How do your what I'll call your middle age or professional dad practitioners, how do they handle this always starting standing every time?
They don't know that it's not like that anywhere else.
Okay.
And so, like, for example, we'll bow in, we'll warm up. I'll depending on the size of the class, I'll line people up and I'll say, okay, first 5 out, you'll switch partners and you just keep rotating out. And we'll say, okay, we're going to grip fight. And of course, the brand new people are like, what's grip fight? And I say, you're going to use your collar and sleeve control or bicep control. And all you have to do is either get behind your partner and hold them at the waist, pick up a leg for 3 seconds, or get them in a front headlock. No takedowns. Slap hands, ready, go. And they're like, oh.
Yeah.
And there we go. And
Okay.
that's class. And that's it. They don't know that it's, and my guys aren't like, you know,
Yeah.
they know that like, oh, let me work my grip. We're not taking down. Let me.
Yeah.
And
No,
then the
that's
guy's like,
smart.
and every class goes from there. So then it's like, okay, let's say I had something particular to teach, a single leg. I'll say, okay, and I even have a particular grip. I'll say, okay, you can use any grip, but if you want to practice the technique that we're doing today, get this Russian tie, okay? And if you can use it to get your partner's back, great. If you can use it to get to a front headlock, great. But if you want to practice this week's technique, pick up the leg. Ready, go. And so people that are paying attention in class will do the things that I said for that week. People who are like, I would do what I want. They'll do what they want. They get to the back. It doesn't matter. They're going to listen to me anyways. So
Right.
give them the option in the game.
No,
you know?
I like it. I've heard
then,
I've heard a couple of other coaches talk about, you know, in the business of jujitsu that one of the reasons they don't do a lot of standing is it's almost like a business decision because they're worried that, you know, the middle-aged practitioner may, you know, be shy to be taken down, and you know it's a scary thing
no,
for beginners.
they don't know any different. They see our kids' class do it. They know that sometimes you trip and fall just by virtue of I picked up your leg and you don't have balance. But like it's not even violent yet, but it's very physical, and they just don't know any different.
Great.
And even as far as like, because a lot of time the other question that I get sometimes is like, is there any injuries because you're taking each other down? Because we're just getting to these few base positions, we didn't even take each other down yet. We're not doing full on takedowns.
Yeah.
We're just grip fighting, which is like 90% of the fight anyways, because the takedown happens in a fraction of a second.
Sure. Yeah.
So
And
remove that fraction of a second.
when you add that takedown, is it, you know, is it full on, or do you do more like randori, you know?
No, so eventually, so now that everybody's used to the contact, it's like, all right, raise your hand if you were able to get the leg up. And then, you know, half the class raises it, or if everybody knows that we're doing single legs and they loves it, everybody went for it. And I'm like, all right, if you got the leg up, here's how the takedown goes. And now you rip where it was. If you picked it up in the front side, we're going to do this. If you picked it up and it got between your legs, you're going to take down this. If you pick, because everybody picked up a different single leg. And so then now you go rip that for a few minutes and we're on to the next part. And it's like, okay, you know, you got to the single leg, my partner's hips are on the ground, and then I would move into the next spot. You know, if I'm teaching a guard sweep, I'd be like, okay, I got taken down by a single leg and now I'm the bottom guy.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And so, I moved the drill on that way. So now even the new students are like, okay, we got here and now we're in this part. And that's it. And my curriculum just keeps going through those positions, and I cycle through, like, if let's say the curriculum is like guard this week, you know, guard pass this week, guard pass next week, side control. If I want to focus on one technique, let's say, I don't know, scissor sweep. Then during the time of my curriculum where it's a guard sweep, I'm showing scissor sweep, obviously. When it's guard pass, I would be showing defensive or scissor sweep that leads to like a counter. Like, okay, if you grab the knee and back step, he'll scissor sweep you, but you can do this. I'm still showing a pass.
Yeah.
But I didn't leave scissor sweep, you know? And
I
it's
like
like,
it.
okay. And then it's like side control. It's like, all right, this guy scissor sweeped me from, you know, collar sleeve. This guy scissor sweep me from collar sleeve. How would I recover? Blah, blah, blah. Or if I scissor sweep you from collar sleeve and I still have the collar sleeve, do I go to knee mount or, you know, like every lesson is whatever. And this is for the coaches that are listening out there. Since it feels like everything ties with everything, like next week, they feel like they want to come back because it's like, oh, this one will go from last one, like last week. Like, you know what I mean? And I not always, but as much as I can try to, I say, okay, I'll start the lesson. Like, all right, last week we were blah, 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 blah. So this week we're going to do this, blah, blah, blah. And I go, all right, spoiler alert, sneak preview. We're going to do this next week. And I'll show a move and then I'll go, all right, live training. And then the class is over and they're like, oh, what about the whatever? I'm like, we're going to do it next week. But every Monday is like, this is what we did last week. And everybody's like, oh, and then we do the week next week. I show, okay. And then we're going to do this next week. And they're like, oh, why didn't you show that? And then it just goes on and
keeps them coming.
Yep, keeps on coming. And then new people come in and they're never lost because we're still starting at the top. We're still getting to a finish. There's some measure, like it's never, I feel like jujitsu, the beauty of it is it is just a bunch of big bangs. But for people that are just walking into that, you're just like, I don't know where I want to be. And so I still let that happen. You just contain it a little bit, and all the pops of creativity are just happening within this space. So I do like that part of the ecological training that people talk about. But then once this, there are some people that will never make the connection. Like, the proponents of that, like Greg Souders and those guys will say, let them naturally get there. There are some people that just, they'll wash out of the sport because they won't get there. They'll wash out of the art because they don't understand the concept. So you have to give them some kind of a framework.
Yeah.
At least in my opinion, I don't study education or technique. Like, I'm not like PhD, none of this or that. But if somebody was like, I'm an ecological brain surgeon, I'm like, well, I don't want to be first. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's got to be like, you got there somehow. Like, there's a precedence somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Let the creativity happen, and if it's truly creative and unique, the professor should be like, oh man, I've never seen that. Can you do that again? But if they're doing something that's already a lesson, all right, guys, this is what we're learning because we're already doing this. You guys all got to the single leg. Guess what we're learning? Single legs.
Nice. Yeah.
You all got to the back this week. All right, this is how you take somebody down from the back. Like, it shows itself what happens. Now, Casey used to do this, and I don't know if people knew. He would just put us through positions, and then he would see where we sucked.
Okay.
And then he would come back, and then I would know because I could tell that I'm paying attention because, like, man, I got smashed in bottom side control. I couldn't get out. And he's like, all right, we're escaping side control today. And I'm like, oh, man, he's just watching us.
Yeah.
Like, he's putting us in these positions, and it makes it look like a meat grinder. And then when we're done, he'll show like a little lesson because we all messed up somewhere, or we all got really close to doing something really right.
Right.
And then he's like, all right, this is how you want to get this bow and arrow choke. This is how you actually finish it. Like, you're all on the back. And it would seem to us that it was out of thin air, but it was actually what we needed because he just watched it at the moment. So it wasn't out of thin air, but he would like watch us and see. He'd be like, okay, they can't do this.
It used to trip me out, Casey. I'm convinced his heart rate never got above like 80 beats a minute when he was rolling. He just cool as a cucumber, stone face.
I never saw him breathe. I never saw him breathe out of his mouth.
No, just calm. Like, maybe he's a serial killer. No, he's not. He could have been watching C-SPAN and had more emotion. I didn't know that he was teaching that way, but
yeah, a lot of the times he was, or he, sometimes he had some things in mind, and it's one of those things is he would also show something that was part of his game, like X guard, and how would I explain it? But he would show it in a context where, like, if you use this guard, I can show you that is the best guard in the world. But he had that for every guard. But like his concept was like, I have a handful of guards that I'm going to use over and over. X guard was one of them because he used them for leg lock entries before a lot of people were doing that. And like when it didn't fit your game, he still made you drill in that space. And like in a modern context, a lot of people, like in a gym like that, it's a meat grinder. Like, it wouldn't be or not that it wouldn't be successful in a time or era now, because it is, depending on where you live. But like with a certain demographic of people, you chew a lot of people up when you put them in a position where it's like, I can't use X guard a lot, but like you're demanding it of me. But it's like, he didn't know he was so demanding because he was so good. You know what I mean? And it was like, dang. But that was also, I guess, you almost like a father, where you're like, he believed that we were capable of it, or else he wouldn't show it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so you're like, am I letting you down?
Yeah, he was. I mean, there were a bunch of things where he's like, if you ever want to be any good, you have to be able to do this. You have to be able to do this. And it's like, man, I am not good at doing that.
Anyways.
So yeah, Casey was a wizard. Watching him handle people was just like, this is why I'm doing this, is I want to be that guy. I mean, yeah. So we are pretty deep into this one. I tell you what we could do. Let's kind of wrap this one up today, and then maybe we'll circle back and we'll talk more, because I am very interested in kind of your mindset for teaching, especially as it relates to how you're approaching things with ecological, without doing ecological brain surgery.
Yeah.
But educating your brand new people on the sport piece of it, I think that's it's like when you hear it, you're like, that's so obvious. But
I mean, like, I've heard John Danaher explain it in the way, in the self-defense context, where it's like, where he talked to Joe Rogan, this is what you want to do. You want to do this.
yeah,
You want to do this. You want to do this. And that explanation is also correct. But like, the person can't like see how your body should accomplish that. At least this is my opinion, right? And so when I've tried to explain jujitsu that way, because this has developed over time. I didn't always teach like that or always have this view, but over time, what I did find was, if I assigned the physical task to the situation, then they get it.
yeah,
When John Danaher actually, when he shows a takedown and said, you want to remove yourself from the ability for your partner to strike each other.
okay,
It's like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. But like, how do you really fight for a takedown if it feels like you're just like avoiding, like, it doesn't, you know what I mean? I don't know how to explain that, but like, you're telling somebody that they're in a fight with punches and kicks, and they have to give their brain the freedom of bodily expression to dive into this adventure, right? And you have to. That's what people think they're getting into when they do jiu-jitsu. They're like, I'm diving into a fight.
well, I think what you
And
just
instead of,
described is innate.
yeah, and
That piece.
so what I try to do is reframe that. Like, listen, take that energy, whatever you're thinking it's going to be, and instead of diving into a fight, just try to win this part. Pick their leg up. And then it's like, they will fall. Most people will fall, and you'll be ahead of the game. And even people that are experienced, you're literally one leg up on them. Like,
Yeah,
you're on a single. And if you can just dial it down into those categories, and they say, oh, well, then what's next? Well, once they're on the ground, they're going to want to put you between their legs, and you're going to not want to be there. And so it's like, I keep getting her out, and he keeps putting him back. I keep getting out, and he keeps getting back. I don't know who's winning. That's the problem with Danaher. It's like, not the problem with it, but it's like, a person can't conceive that there's multiple exchanges. So now where are we? Like, I went here, and then I went here, then I went here, then I went here, then I'm here, then I'm in mount, then I'm in side control. Like, where am I in the self-defense fight? I don't know. But if it's like, no, you tallied this much points, they tallied this much points, and you're still on top, and this is the reason you're winning, they understand that part. Oh, I can, I don't know. Somehow it assigns, like you said, like, after I taught it, I was like, why did I ever teach it like this before? Because people get
yeah,
it now. They're like, oh, I get it.
yeah. It's innate. That's. I got into a fight before I ever took a jiu-jitsu class, and the guy took me down. But I closed my guard, and I got a hold of his arm so he couldn't punch me. Those were the two things that I did, because I don't know how to wrestle, and I didn't have jiu-jitsu. But those two things made sense. I don't want to get hit. I'm going to keep him where he is, and
That's it.
so.
And imagine if I told you, as a new person, hey, if you can do this for 5 minutes, if you pull guard and hold somebody's arms for 5 minutes and attempt a couple of collar chokes, did you know that you're going to win a match? And they're like, what? That one? I was like, yeah, you pull guard and you close it and you hold their head down, and you throw a few collar chokes up, you won. Did you know that you won a match? And they're like,
Right.
huh.
Yeah.
Huh. And now it goes from like being on my back and just keeping my guard closed as being like, what am I learning here? To like, wait, this is a winning strategy. Like, in some contexts, could be a winning strategy. Now, it's not the only one. You need to learn more than this.
Yeah.
But here you go. Here you go with a strategy. As a matter of fact, in IBJJF, a 90th percentile strategy. Pull, close guard, and just hang out there and throw
and attack. Have a guard you shall not pass.
Throw up X chokes.
Yeah. All right. Well,
and
cool,
they get
man.
They get that part. So.
Well, Mike, I appreciate you taking time out of your day. I've kind of say it with a lot of guests. Time it's a finite thing we don't get more of. So the fact that you're willing to sit down with me, I really do appreciate it, and it's fantastic catching back up with you too. I mean, that's the best part about this podcast, is I'm getting to talk about jiu-jitsu with people that generally I like anyway. So,
Yes, thank you.
So
Love you, brother.
hopefully we can do it again sometime. And again, thank you very much. I'm glad your gym is thriving, and I'm even more happy that your family is thriving and that life is good for you.
Yeah, man, please come out this way. If you're ever out this way, of course.
Yes,
We'll
sir.
hang out. Let's do it live.
Yeah.
Let's do the next one live or something.
Okay. Yeah, I'm down. Yeah, we could do a live one. I like
There you
it.
go.
All right, brother. I'll talk
All
to
right.
you later.
Have a good one.